My favorite Mike Tyson quote, which is when he said, "Everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the face." And so that's really what we test with Luke Cage.
I ain't no joke.
This season really reminds me of a cross between The Wire and New York Undercover.
Yeah.
Look it up for those of you who don't remember that one. So, which had music in every episode, and you did that in Mariah's Club. Like, there's some amazing artists that you introduced here.
The biggest influence for me was not just New York Undercover, but the Francis Ford Coppola movie, The Cotton Club, which, because of how specific it was to Harlem and what the Cotton Club represented. The Cotton Club, I mean, and it's always what Harlem has been. Harlem has always been both Washington, D.C. and Las Vegas for African Americans. It's Washington, D.C. from the standpoint of so many black politicians come from Harlem, and so many black political movements are touched by Harlem. But then you also have the arts, and you also have clubs that are the center of music. You know, in the hip-hop era, it's Harlem World now, you know, or the Rooftop. Now it's like, you know, Harlem's Paradise is kind of like a mix of like, you know, Wilt Small's Paradise and Cotton Club and a few other, Lenox Lounge, a few other places. But then, you know, also it's also home to the gangsters, you know, because of the fact that you had a Bumpy Johnson, you had a Madam Queen, you had a Nicky Barnes, you had a Frank Lucas. And the fact is, we were able to explore some of that in terms of our interpretations of Cottonmouth and these different villains. So I always want things to be where a viewer will hear a reference and then they pause and then they Google. So it really allows us to kind of use the show as a Trojan horse to really explore black culture.
Well, which episode this season is like your favorite episode?
That's hard.
Pick one.
There are a lot of great moments, and it depends. I'd have to get spoilerific in order to go as deep as I'd like to.
Okay, don't explain it. Just tell us which one it is. Like, can you tell us the number of the episode that's your favorite?
Ooh, 10. Episode 10's got a lot of great moments.
Okay.
Episode 12 has a fight that's really epic. A couple of fights that are epic. 13, the finale, I think is going to blow people's minds. One of the best personal arguments, of course, happens in episode 3. There's a moment of revelation in episode 9 with Alfre Woodard's character, Mariah Dillard, that just like, it's unshakable.
She's phenomenal. She's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
All the characters this season really, because this feels more like an ensemble this season, and I feel like Luke has his story, but so does Mariah, so does her daughter, so does Shades, so does Bushmaster. Was that intentional, that ensemble feel?
Well, it's always kind of been an ensemble, but the thing is, when you know, any first year of a season, you're just trying to establish the world. And part of it is you spend a lot of time world building, and then at the same time you're also trying to, you know, move and motivate your characters. Season 2 is where you really allow your characters to breathe, because you're able to. Probably the biggest influence on us, honestly, was in terms of what we wanted our second season to be. Like, I'm always a fan of second albums that like kind of take things to the next level, that beat the sophomore slump. So for me, it was about, can we make a season that could be our Paul's Boutique or our Low End Theory or our ATLians or, you know, our Death Certificate, like that second album that kind of raises things to the next level. And that's what we did just in terms of expanding. And so we were able to get into everybody's stories. Misty had her own challenges because of her losing her arm. So it isn't just about, you know, getting the cool arm that you see in the teasers, but it's also about the evolution of what she goes through on her emotional journey of kind of being, you know, having a dysmorphic reaction to losing her arm. So we get into that. We get into Luke's identity and also his anger, because his father, played by the late Reggie Caffey, comes into play. And we're
who was amazing. Like, I shed a tear when he came on screen.
Oh, he was,
and his voice, everything is so iconic about him.
Well, that's the thing.
And he played a huge part of this season.
Yeah, I think people are going to be surprised at how big a part Reg played. And this was Reg's last series, and you know, we let it all hang out because certainly we didn't know, he didn't know. He found out that he was sick while filming, and so it wasn't a question of, you know, him passing away before filming ended. he actually finished with, he finished everything that we had written for him. And it's just really, like, one of my greatest regrets beyond losing someone who became a friend is the fact that he loved the show, and I just wish that he had gotten to see himself, because I would dare say, of his incredibly classic performances, there are just moments in this series with him in particular that I think will rank amongst his best.
The other reason why I think this season is so amazing is because you work with so many female directors.
Yeah.
You have Lucy Liu, Nima Barnett, Millicent Shelton, Casey Lemons, tons of people. What is it like when people like question you for like, why are you using so many women directors? Are you trying to make a statement?
Well, you know, it's kind of the same way people ask me, like, you know, they make the same statements or questions about African American directors. You know, the emblem on my shirt is of the 99th Fighter Squadron, because my grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman. He flew in the 100th Fighter Squadron and 302nd. The thing is that he always knew as a pilot that people were going to question, just because of his color, whether he could even fly a plane. So you had to deal with that. You had to deal with the fact that you were fighting as much the racism as much as you were anybody that you were dogfighting with. You know, particularly in his case, you know, flying against Nazis and shooting them down. But the whole thing that he always used to say is, like, physics has no color. Either you can fly or you can't fly. And so that's the thing that when I think about, you know, using female directors, it's not a question of female directors. The only thing that, you know, the camera doesn't have gender. The only thing that matters with a director is their taste and their love and understanding of the characters in the show. Because even in terms of when you talk about fight choreography and filming it is just as much about pre-planning and understanding your shots and, you know, knowing what you want to get, as you know, that's not gender like specific. So the whole thing was, we wanted, you know, directors that were incredible with actors, but then at the same time could visually capture and elevate the show. So it's funny because some people will say, well, why have so many female directors on an action-oriented show? And my response to that is, all the moments that people are freaking out on the trailer, like, for example, that flip kick with Bushmaster knocking down Luke, Sally Richardson directed that episode. The epic fight on the bridge, Millicent Shelton directed that episode. Lucy Liu, Steph Green, Nima Barnett, Casey Lemons all had incredible action moments and emotional moments in their episodes. So it's not a question of you know, why can a female director direct a brawny action-oriented show. The question is, why aren't more female directors getting opportunities across the board?
There you go. And I mean, and I couldn't have said it better myself, but I really, really appreciate you doing that this season. So, real quick, what do you think is a theme? What is one theme you want people to walk away from this season with? Like,
my favorite Mike Tyson quote, which is when he said, "Everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the face." And so that's really what we test with Luke Cage. It's, you know, it's two notions. First, that one, where like when you actually get hit, like, how does that affect who you are? And then the second notion is, of course, I believe it's a Japanese proverb, fall 7 times, rise 8, which means that no matter how many times you get knocked down, you have to get up one more time. And we really explore that with Luke. And then, you know, of course, I would also say the other theme is family first always, because of the fact that we get so deep into Luke's family in terms of his relationship with his father, Luke's relationship with Claire, which gets very interesting, Mariah's relationship with her daughter, which is also gets deep in some ways, Bushmaster, in terms of his family legacy and how he's tied to Harlem and Harlem's Paradise. Everybody in their own way finds out that, you know, family is at the root of who you are in ways that are both incredibly inspiring and also detrimental.